Gurvidum te lazwaltum chuyud biligis nagagirwi acho yag yud genzo Sqot elvigolti de chibanug zaunasnug kuskiasnug latakwasnug nagagirwi lazwaltum cho psidige gizemiliag nigwiskiskiktamig nagapsidigek edli gak yud nagapsidiz a magwanal zibul sisal quispamul subegio Kamajor Walton Chip Way Caesar, Juju Cheesig, the Mass with Zip Caesig, Chuk Mouse Wagon Wagilwa, Baki Tunya Gilwa, you Psida Gag, good at a good with Skik to make, Lumkig Naga, Mozigis cook. Good way and Laza Walter Moag, Westpadel said, Nibau said Pesazamig Naga, Mozigis Watts, Spamkig, Wiggle Teeded, Edgeball, Gilwap Sida. Scripton and it'll Wuligakimi Wagnal, Wolastoqey, Wabanogway, Skidinaway, Sida, Madela Nail, Naga Wuligakiminia, Messinminia, Wajukiminia, Gigi Hine. Ed Luciad go walk with Macway out, middle age. No. So I just wanted to speak my language first and foremost, as my grandfather has always taught me growing up to speak my language, my mother tongue first and foremost, and to introduce myself in who I am. I am, as what was said, my traditional name is spuz-akw-zid, which translates to morning star burning. It was gifted to me. Um, the symbol of my name was gifted to me by one of my teachers that was mentioned, Sagatay, Gwen Bear, and later on was translated by my mother, the late Doris Tremblay LePorte. And Morning Star Burning, I didn't quite comprehend the extent and the responsibility that came with that name. But as I grew in this, with using that name within ceremony and through gatherings, that I started to understand and gain the knowledge and wisdom of what my responsibility is with carrying that that powerful name. Um, so I know that my role is when I get up first thing in the morning is that I greet our grandfather's son, who we call Espedauset, which is translated the one who walked through the sky at daytime. Is that's my role, to put forward all my thoughts of gratitude for all life, from the center of our Mother Earth to her surface and all that's below our feet, and all life forms and the aquifers and all the shale and and all of life there, and on the surface, all the mountains and the valleys and the forests, as well as the medicines and the food that grow here, and as well as all the water systems, the rivers, the lakes, the streams, the marshes, and the oceans and the seas. And also to be thankful for all the animals, the four legged, the swimmers, the flyers, and the crawlers, for it is them who actually helps clean the earth, the air, and the water. And I always put forward thoughts of gratitude to our grandfather sun, grandmother moon, our sisters and brothers the stars, and our father sky, for it is them who maintain the balance in life above our heads. So that's my role, and that's my responsibility each morning and each night when I put my head on my pillow. Is before I do that, is I put forward thoughts of gratitude for the day in which I had a chance to walk and breathe and eat and drink. Um, and I want to acknowledge my two clan systems that I carry. On my mother's side is the Crow clan, and through my father's side is the Wolf clan. So I want to honor them, that they both have gone to the spirit world. And I try my best to honor and to respect those two clans and to treat them with much respect. Um, I want to talk a little bit about share my story as a child. Um, I'm not a professor or I'm not a pilot. I'm not an academic per se. I did go through post-secondary and various fields in social work and through the education department. I did teach for over 30 years, and I dabbled in social work the first 10 years of my life, which was pretty stressful at times. But now I still work in the education field. I'm promoting uh, our language through a pre-K and a K school called Gakimin here in Fredericton. It is actually hosted at the Killarney Lodge, and we utilize the lodge, the basement, or the the middle floor of that lodge and the beautiful surroundings of the lake that's there. And we've been promoting our language for the last year, and starting September, it's our second year in hosting the our immersion school there. So I've been helping with the curriculum development there, and plus helping the young teachers who are just learning our language. And I actually go into the classroom and speak with the children as well as the teachers. So that's a pretty exciting and worthwhile job that I have. And the other 2 days of the week, I go to the craft college here in the arts, craft and design here in Fredericton, and I sit as a guidance person for the Indigenous students who are taking courses there. So, and besides that, I was lifted by the Wolastoqey clan mothers back in 2016 to hold the traditional position as Wolastoq Grand Chief. It's a traditional way of government. It's not the band elected chief and council who maintain the government within their communities. Mine is a traditional title, and I'm responsible. I'm responsible for the huge homeland, what we call Wolastoquk, which stems from all the way up to parts of Quebec, Maine, New Brunswick, all the way down to the Bay of Fundy. And we follow our river, which we call Wolastoq, and it goes all the way up, as I said, to Quebec, and it disperses there at the Bay of Fundy down near what we call Minnequest, what is the settlers called St. John. Um, so I want to share a bit about my childhood, which I learned to tell stories from my grandfather. And I want to show a picture. I don't have the ability to show slides or nothing. This is my grandfather. He was, I'm trying to get him together. He was 96 when he passed away, and he lived a long, fruitful life. He worked hard. He worked in the woods at the ripe age of 7 or 8. He quit school because his family was very poor, and to help maintain the home on the way to school one morning, he followed this group of men walking to the woods. And then when he walked to the woods, he asked the foreman, "Can I have a job?" And he was just a young boy at the time. He says, "Well, you can clear brush as long as your parents agree to it." And I believe he got paid like a quarter a week or something like that. But that was a lot of money probably back then. So so he did that till later on in his teens, up until his 20s. And then he joined CP Rail, and he worked on the railroad up until he was almost 70 years old. And he finally retired. He couldn't read nor write, He had to sign his checks with the X, the old X marks a spot sort of um, way to identify himself. Um, he was not book smart. He was not an academic, but to me, he was the smartest man that I knew. He was very wise in his ways of medicine picking, and he was known as the man who could predict the seasons, especially winter. And I want to go back to a time I was, this was preschool for me. I'm the youngest of 10. Before I ventured to the Catholic day school, I had the wonderful experience of being the youngest and being alone with my mom. And then we would just, she would, each morning she'd walk down to visit my grandparents, Madeline and Louise. And we'd go down there. And I recall it was in the spring. And it's probably 1964, 65 around there before I began school. And I remember going to his backyard. He had and his home, his backyard was up against what the colonial um, government calls the Tobic River, and it kind of flowed into what the colonial government calls the St. John River, but we call that Nagut is the river in which his home was up against the back of his house was up against the Nagut, which flew into Wolastoqey. So I recall going back, and he was working on his garden. He always had this amazing garden, and he always got it going early. Um, and then he would always till it by hand. And it was late May because he always told me you always have to wait till the last full moon of May before you plant your seeds, because if you do it before that, then the frost will get your seeds. So he always knew that. He always told me, wait till the last full moon of May. So I remember walking back there, and he was tilling his garden, and Mom went in to visit my gram, and then he said, so I stayed outside with my grandfather, which I usually did. And he said, Wujawi. So he said, come on, my son, my grandson, come to the edge of the bank of Nagut with me. So I remember this like he told me this yesterday. He was holding my hand, and he had this really rough hands because he was always working hard, and great big fingers, and he just covered my little hand at the time, and then he started to talk in all of our Wolastoqey language, and he pointed to the river, and he pointed across the river. He said that when he was a younger man, and up until these dams, he called them, were put to flood the areas where he used to pick all his medicines. He said there were so many medicines across the river. Agamuk, he called Agamuk, across the river. He says that's all I needed. Everything grew there, from muskrat root to golden thread to all the nuts, the berries, because we don't identify nuts and berries or fiddleheads as food because they're considered a medicine to us. So he said, gas na gwalagnage ni pizonal. He said there were so many medicines there. And then they built those dams, he said. And he said, I remember when the salmon used to come up to spawn. He said, um, you would hear them before you would see them. They sounded like a freight train um, coming up river, he says. And the river would shake. You would see the river all bubbling and shaking. And he said, there were so many salmon you can walk on their backs. There was that many salmon. He said, and he said he recalls his mom or his dad telling him to go down to the banks and just go get a salmon for their meal. He says, I didn't need a fishing rod. I didn't need a net. I used my bare hands, he said. I just went down to wade in the water around my waist, and I would just grab a salmon and I just throw it on the bank, and I would take its life, and then we'd go up and we'd feast on salmon for a few days. He says they were huge salmon. He said and then again he says, but they built those damn dams, and the salmon stopped coming. And I remember looking up at him because it was during the morning, and we were facing the east. The sun was um was glazing off his old wrinkled face. And I remember looking up at him, and a little tear came down his cheek. And I've never seen my grandfather cry before. And I was so amazed looking at his old, wrinkled, powerful face, watching that little teardrop come down his cheek, reminiscing of the times before those damn dams were built. Um, so this is a powerful story that I recall, that I retell numerous times when I talk about the importance of our river, Wolastoqey. Wolastoqey was our main highway, our Trans-Canada. It was our source of food, our transportation, recreation, water. There was a time when we could actually drink from our rivers. I remember actually drinking from our rivers and swimming in our rivers. And there was a study done by one of our women. Her name is Cecilia Brooks. She's titles herself Grandmother Water, and she's she graduated in the States through biology and various different academia, and then she came back here and to help our people to understand what's happening to our water. And she done a study approximately 12 to 15 years ago. And our river, Wolastoqey, is one of the most polluted rivers in all of North America. Where within my lifetime, and I was born in 1960, so I'm 62 years old, within my lifetime that we could drink from the river. Now we're told, and she warned our people not to pick medicines or pick fiddleheads or don't pick nothing along the banks, cause that river is so polluted that it would make us sick. So this is very troublesome, and we've been trying to educate the government as well as the allies how important our river is to us. We are called Wolastoqey. We are the people of the beautiful and bountiful river, and our responsibility is that river because we are named after her, and we have lost, a lot of our people have lost their vision and their knowledge and their wisdom of how important that river is to our people. After Sagatay, Gwen, my teacher, passed away, her eldest brother Stevie Bear, came from up northern Quebec, and he was a little late for her death ceremony. But we had a ceremony for him and his family the day after, and we were sitting there after the ceremony, and he says, Ron, the last time that I heard our people actually laugh, that deep belly laugh and with joy, is that before these dams were built. Because he said, those dams, and there's the Mactaquac Dam, and there's the Beechwood Dam, there's Grand Falls Dam, the Tobic Dam, the Tilly Dam. There's 5 dams that go up this river. And he says, the last time I've heard our people laugh joyfully is before those dams were created. And I consider those dams huge blockage to the arteries. It'd be like When a human being gets a huge coronary attack and all the arteries are blocked and there's no beat, there's no life to the heart. This is what happened to this beautiful river we call Wolastoq. And our people are in dire straits, and our people who live within our communities are suffering. We have the highest cases of homelessness, addictions, abuse, suicide, murder and missing indigenous women and girls, and the child welfare of taking our children out of our communities and putting in them into other abusive foster homes that aren't indigenous, and and I contribute that to the health of our river. Our river is in dire strait, and in reflection, our people are in dire strait. And we've lost our connection to that Wolastoq, our deep connection to Wolastoq, because we are Wolastoq, as our elder Dan from my community of Nagotkuk always said at the beginning of ceremonies, whether it be in a sweat lodge, a circle, a pipe ceremony, a gathering. He always said, I am Wolastoq and Wolastoq is me. To really capture, to identify, to remind us we are that river and that river is us. So I just wanted to share that. I know we're kind of getting long. We're supposed to do an hour. I just want to end my portion of storytelling in singing that beautiful song Wolastoq that Sagatay Gwen had translated into our language to honor and respect that river. So I want to conclude in singing Wolastoq. Wolastoq Ahadi Devanigo, Wolastoq Go fast Elamia. Need was the nipin, was the chmilaska mill. Need was the nipin, was the chmilaska mill. The Wolastoq is flowing, glowing and glowing. The Wolastoq is flowing down to the sea. Mother, carry me, a child I will always be. Mother, carry me, a child I will always be. Wolastoq b'malakwe, ahaji debamigo. Wolastoq b'malakwe, zufek salamia. Nigwas b'mipin, wazizet milaska mil. Nigwas b'mipin, wazizet milaska mil. Taho, nilage, 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 nilage. And that translates to, may that be the truth, let that be so. May that be the truth, let that be so. May that be the truth, let that be so. Okay, Thank you.